Welcome back to Everyday Executive, where this is a safe place for you to ask questions and to learn from my tips and experiences on my journey as I went from a nurse to a CEO. So, another common question that I get asked is, how did you get your management job, or how did you even work in your management job with zero experience? So, if you did not see my journey that I talked about in my first couple chapters of my life, click above and you can see the first part of my journey and how I learned a skill, how I cultivated the skill, and how I used those kind of small steps in my journey to get the management job. So my first management job was when I was at the age of 23, and I was asked to be the director of nursing of a nursing home. And I was asked to be that and to be that interview. It was I did interview for it, but I was actually asked to interview for it. And so the question I get asked is, you were so young, really only 3 years of actual nursing clinical experience. How did that happen? And as we talked about at the last episode, it's not management is a different skill set that you need to develop that is different from your trade skill set. So you get noticed and you cultivate your trade skill set, but you really then need to focus on the small things. I'll call it the softer skills to develop more of the management portion of it. So, yes, I was asked to be a director and with zero management experience. One thing I was very nervous, certainly naive, certainly made plenty of mistakes. But I want to kind of help you prevent you from making some of those same mistakes and maybe give you a leg up on your journey as you get those opportunities to be management. So the first thing is, I talked about that positive energy and that positive attitude. I really went into it all in, right? I had that positive. I really wanted to get to know everyone, what their likes and what their dislikes were. We talk about the don't underestimate, always kind of putting your best foot forward, being eager to learn in the last episode. And so I kind of had some of that natural, I guess I'll call it personality anyway, that helped me. But probably the one of the biggest tips that I would give you is get a mentor or take a class or read a book, or preferably both. One of the things that was probably most influential to me in developing my management skills was reading the book and actually taking the class, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This really was, in my opinion, life changing. Now, I was 23, and so I didn't have, like I said, probably that emotional intelligence as well as definitely experience or even maturity per se yet to really probably value this in the way that I would now at my age currently, which is 45. For those who are wondering, yes, I'm in the over 40 age group. But I really embraced the learning of it, and part of it was using that positive energy, getting to know your people, understanding that you have to build trust in order for them to ironically trust you, but more importantly, work together as a team and how that can actually influence the results. So I took that class and, like I said, I embraced it and I started to apply it. One of the examples I'll give is, again, I was the newbie, right? Zero experience, very young. Most people, if not all people, were older than I was. I'm in this class that also others in our, I'll call it system, were in as well. And one of the things I remember is I would read the material. I would actually do the workbook. If you've ever taken a Dale Carnegie class, there's a workbook and an applied portion to it. And I would use examples the following week as I was working with my team and our team, and I would bring back questions and I would, utilize those experiences to maybe, I would say, question the teacher and to get that experience that the teacher was bringing, to help me learn to manage. And I apparently was the only one in the class that was really doing that. As a matter of fact, the only thing that I vividly remember is the professor actually stopping class. It was a 6 week course, one day a week, saying, those of you who are not applying this aren't really utilizing your knowledge to the best of your ability, or maybe was considering the soft skills unnecessary, right? Or maybe they perceived it as they were already doing it, or maybe they didn't perceive it as important. Whatever the reasons may be, what I'll tell you is I developed pretty quickly and I got the results that I wanted with our team in a pretty rapid manner. So apply the knowledge that you get from the books, from the mentoring, from the classes, and utilize those experiences and learn from them. Not everything was perfect. I made plenty of mistakes. And that's when I would bring those questions back and say, hey, to your mentor or to someone and say, hey, how would you handle this scenario? And so really utilize that and find those opportunities. Again, I got to know staff members, their likes, their dislikes. I was approachable. Staff then, age then became a number. I did become, I guess I'll call it the authority or boss of that group, whether an age just became a number. But that didn't happen because I came in and said, I'm the director, you must listen to me. And we've all experienced some of that, right? I think everyone has experienced managers or bosses that maybe have felt like they needed to exert their title, for lack of a better word, or their authority. And sometimes in some areas that style works, and maybe there's situations even where that style works. But what I found best, and I think what I found best works for me and my style, is I really want to be part of that team. And what I found is you don't have to say, I am the boss, you must listen to me. The trust happens naturally when you work with them on times of trouble. That's where I find trust really develops. And by trouble, I mean challenging times, challenging experiences you might be having in your industry. And you step up and you're the one that's leading the team, but you're also listening to others. You're gathering input, you're involving others in the decision making process. And the way you do that is you've already developed relationships with them by finding out their likes, their dislikes, their strengths, and their weaknesses by engaging with them. And so that really, when you take that time to get to know people, get to know their interests, and again, their weaknesses, and their strengths, and work with them on that. Um, that's when the team really becomes productive in those challenging times and where you can persevere through those times as well. Get to know and understand the point of view of others. That was one thing, like I said, whether it was just being a whether it was being young, whether it was being naive, or just part of the Dale Carnegie class, I understood that I needed that team and I needed to understand the point of views of others when they challenged my point of view or others' point of view. One of the key things that I learned is, again, taking a step back, working in the group setting, and making sure every single person's point of view or input is heard so that the team together can voice and come up with a resolution together. That also will build trust with your team. That is invaluable. And honestly, you'll probably make a better decision because of it, which also will get noticed by perhaps your corporation or people that you are reporting to, because that's the ultimate goal. If you really want to continue on your journey, you need to have solid results. You need to have solid people that are willing to vouch for you, whether you're in the room or not. And then on top of that, you need to have somebody notice that, right? So these are the steps that I took that helped me gain further in my journey as I became further in my career. I learned to get results through others. So, one of the things that's different, when you're doing your own skill or trade or whatever you're doing, you are the person that's responsible for getting XYZ done, right? Well, in management, the skill set's different. You have to learn to get XYZ done through others, through delegation. And that's not necessarily being like, hey, Kelly, you need to do this by tomorrow. There may be instances where that happens, but where you really gain the most momentum and where you really gain the results that you're looking for is when you can appropriately delegate to those that are really interested in that project, are really invested in that project, and they themselves want to grow in their career. So one of the things that I learned is when you find out what people's interests are and their strengths, their weaknesses, their likes and their dislikes, everyone wants to work on a project that they're really good at, that they're really confident in, that they really understand, and they will feel appreciated and honored usually to be asked to lead that project. So then learning how to get those same results through others is a critical component, in addition to making sure you don't take credit for what other people have done as well. You're going to gain trust and respect as a leader when you get results through others and understand and appreciate the others that are doing those results, acknowledging them publicly, appreciating what they did for that project. And it really is a win-win. It's a win because you've gained experience in others. You yourself still, through people you're reporting to, will get the acknowledgement that you got the result you wanted. And everyone wins in that scenario. So, really understanding that and understanding you don't need to be the one to take credit for something that someone else did to get the credit for it, if that makes sense. I also had to learn to have tough conversations with employees and others after that trust is built, and I think that's one of the key things. So, when you start working with others and you start getting results from others, not everyone is going to get the results you're looking for. That doesn't mean they're not doing it in a way that you wouldn't do it. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that. Everyone has a different style in the way they do things, and that is not only okay, but encouraged. But not everyone is going to get the results of what you're looking for. And that's when you have to start having those tough conversations. So the tough conversations really comes down to you really need to have trust with the person first for it to be effective in a positive, productive way. Because they will take it in the way that you mean it. You care about them. First of all, sometimes you even have to say that, like, I care about you. But you and I both know this result of this project isn't what we were looking for. Tell me why that was. And sometimes just starting with that, you'll be able to have that conversation and you can see an immediate change in results. Sometimes you can't, and then you have to have different conversations. But in this phase, I really started to learn how to have those tough conversations. And I would say it was a beginning step. I was making all sorts of mistakes on this. I can tell you an example of where, I was frustrated and had multiple conversations with an employee and it just didn't seem to work. And I probably didn't handle it in the best that I needed to. So one of the things that I learned is I need to control my own emotions. One of the things that also will propel you forward, and I don't care if this is in your personal life or your professional life, is having the discipline to control your emotions. And what I mean by that is it's not about being, a robot. I'm actually probably more expressive than anything. I think people, I have that positive energy that I usually bring. But when you are having the tough conversations, or you are frustrated, or you are angered, those are the times where it really takes the discipline to sit back, not, control how you're reacting, really think about and process how you want to respond, and then respond professionally. Anyone can fly off the handle, right? I mean, I think we've all seen it, we've all experienced it. Anyone can do that. It really takes a different level of emotional intelligence to have the discipline not to do that and to respond in a professional way. And this is where I kind of really, after making mistakes, really kind of learned that behavior, or started to learn that behavior. This is also where I learned the kind of boss that I didn't want to be. And what do I mean by that? So, we've all had bosses where ones we've liked, ones we didn't liked. And it really I'm not talking about, an unethical boss or a legal issue. So I'm just talking about different styles of management, or different styles of bosses and their management styles. So again, something ethical or legal, I'm not talking about that. That's a whole different reaction that you should have. But one thing I did learn, and I'll give you an example. I had a particular boss that, really, kind of pick their own hours, as they should. And I had a corporation who really felt like this particular boss, which is who I reported to, needed to be there 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And this corporation, if they would show up at 8:30 for whatever the meetings may be happening. If my boss at that time was not there, I never threw them under the bus and said, "Oh, I have no idea where they're at. They never show up till 9 a.m." That is something that I would encourage you not to do. I'm not saying be dishonest. I'm saying manage up. And what I mean by that, and here's how that really became, I think, another way for me to develop my emotional intelligence. So when the corporation showed up at 8:30, hey, where is so and so? I would say, I don't know. They're not here yet. I'm sure they'll be here soon. What can I help you with? And what that did was, first of all, my boss was happy because they were able to get there and be managed up in that scenario. My corporation was happy because they were getting their needs met for whatever project they needed for that particular morning. And also, it actually helped me in the future because I now became their go to person for certain things. And we talked about that the last episode. If you want to understand how to be the go to person, refer to the last episode. But that really had a win, win, win. My boss was happy. My boss was happy with me. My corporation was happy. And I was getting noticed for the next springboard. So, what I would say, what I really learned from that is manage up. Again, not saying you lie about anything, not saying you don't do anything illegal or unethical, but if you have a management style, a boss that maybe isn't the best management style that you yourself want to emulate, just learn from those experiences and learn what not to do when you get that next job. So those were really probably the key things that I took away from that experience in the management realm. Now, I'll tell you from a personal note, at that time, I had my first baby after I had done this management job for about 2.5 years. And I found naively, a baby takes up more time 24/7 than what I was willing at that time to give. So I actually went out of the management I would say, area for about 3 years. And then I had to re enter the management workforce. So, the next episode, we're going to talk about how do you do that? If you're out of work experience for a few years, or you were out of work experience, or you're new of coming back in, how do you re enter that and get to the level that you'd like to be, again, to potentially being a CEO, which is where I got. So, tune in next week and we will discuss how to re-enter that and still get the CEO job.
Opinions and experiences expressed on this podcast are solely those of the host and do not express the views or opinions of past or current employers. The opinions and experiences should not be considered professional advice and is not necessarily indicative of future results.